All right, let's talk about the architecture of boredom. We're going to dive deep and really take apart this very specific, very modern feeling. But listen, this isn't your lazy Sunday afternoon kind of boredom. No, this is something else entirely.
So have you ever wondered this? Why are we so exhausted in a world that is literally designed to be effortless? It's the central paradox of our time, right? Everything is just a swipe away, totally frictionless, and yet we feel completely and utterly drained. It's like your phone is feeding you these little hits of dopamine, but your soul, it feels like it's starving. So let's figure out why.
And this right here is the absolute key. You're not lazy, you're neurologically starved. That feeling, and you know the one I'm talking about, that hollow weight you feel when you're just scrolling and scrolling, that is not a character flaw. It is a grinding ache. See, lazy people are comfortable. You are not comfortable. You're living in an environment that has stripped away the very friction your brain needs in order to grow. And this quote from the psychologist Carl Jung, man, it just hits the nail on the head. He said we need the slow and often brutal emergence of our actual selves. Think about that for a second. Our true selves don't just poof into existence. They emerge. They are forged in struggle, in slowness, in inconvenience. And our slick, frictionless world, it's basically designed to help us sidestep that entire messy process.
So how in the world did we get here? Well, the first piece of this puzzle is what we can call the consumer mindset. And step one is really just admitting that we've all been trained to be consumers. And I'm not just talking about of products, but of people, of ideas, and yeah, even of our own lives. The sociologist Zygmunt Bauman had a perfect term for this. He called it liquid love. And it's such a great description of our digital lives, isn't it? It's this state where everything that's supposed to be solid, your attention, your focus, your commitments, is encouraged to just dissolve into a kind of frictionless fantasy. We just float from one thing to the next, never really landing anywhere.
And that is the trap, isn't it? It's so seductive. That intoxication of possibility, the endless scroll, the constant high of what could be, it just feels so much better than the messy, inconvenient, hard work of the middle. The actual reality of committing to something and grinding through the boring parts.
And this is where it really gets personal, because you start treating your own potential like it's a product you're shopping for. You're waiting to feel electric about it. You're auditing your own life, holding out for that perfect lightning bolt of inspiration before you even start. And in the process, we totally forget that real progress, real depth, that stuff happens when you stay in the room long after that initial jolt of excitement is gone. Okay, so that's the consumer mindset. Now let's look at how that evolves into something, a lot more complex. Your sophisticated procrastination. And listen, this is not just mindless scrolling. Oh no, this is an active, really well-defended form of avoidance. The author Stephen Pressfield has a brilliant name for this. He calls it the shadow career. It's basically the act of preparing to live. You're watching, you're reading, you're following all the experts, but you never ever actually touch the work itself. It is, and I mean this, a true masterpiece of procrastination. And just look at the difference here, right? Real work involves risk and exposure. It's about dealing with an inconvenient reality. It means you are inside the dream. But the shadow career? Nope. That's all about comfort and safety. It's about constant preparation. You're not inside the dream, you're just orbiting it, safely, from the outside looking in. And this quote explains exactly why it's so tempting, so addictive, because it has the texture of effort without the exposure of actual risk. It feels like you're being productive. It gives you that sensation of effort, but it perfectly insulates you from the one thing you're terrified of, actual risk, the possibility of failure. So what's the engine that's driving this whole machine? What's really going on inside our heads? Well, it's something we can call the tyranny of the ideal, and it is a relentless, brutal form of self-judgment. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You have this image of an ideal self in your head, and it is constantly judging you. This version of you is more disciplined, more successful, always a few steps ahead. But here's the secret. That ideal self, it isn't actually you. It's a ghost. It's just a composite sketch made up of what you think other people expect you to be. And this creates this awful, vicious cycle of judgment. It goes like this. First, you imagine that perfect ideal self. Second, you feel judged by it. Third, you freeze up completely to avoid any chance of failure. And what's the result? Step 4, you stay stuck, right back where you started, in that grinding boredom. It's like you're living inside this internal courtroom. You're always on the stand, always on trial, and the verdict is always guilty or not good enough. And this is what keeps you frozen in boredom. It paralyzes you. It makes you too afraid to actually go out and act and adjust in the real world, where, people might actually see you mess up.
Okay, so that's the cage. That's the architecture of the whole thing. The big question now is, how do we get out? Well, here's the thing. The path isn't around the boredom. The path is directly through it. So how do you do it? How do you clear the ground? How do you actually break down all these structures we've talked about? The consumer mindset, the shadow career, that internal courtroom, and just make some space for something new to grow. The answer isn't to build more stuff on top of it. It's to embrace the emptiness. And it all starts with a pretty radical shift in perspective.
Let's go back to Jung for a second. He had a name for this process: individuation. It's just the journey of becoming wholly and specifically yourself. But here's the catch. It requires what he called a deliberate descent. You have to consciously, on purpose, choose to walk right into the very boredom you've been running away from.
So what does embracing boredom actually mean? What does it look like? Well, for starters, you have to stop performing. Stop performing for an imaginary audience that isn't even there. You have to be willing to just sit in the ruins of your own shattered attention span. And then you listen. Because that feeling of boredom, it's not actually empty. It's full of what's called shadow material. Your rage, your unacknowledged needs, the unlived parts of your life that are trying to come to the surface.
And if you remember only one thing, let it be this. The emptiness you feel is not failure. It's the clearing of the ground where something real can finally be built. When you stop all the noise and you just face that void, don't run from it. That feeling isn't a sign that you failed. It's a sign that you finally got a clean slate. It's an empty lot, and now you get to build something that is actually, truly yours.
Okay, so here's your challenge, and I mean it. For today, I want you to do one thing you've been controlling instead of doing. That thing you're endlessly preparing for or researching, your shadow career. Just do it. And here's the most important part. Do it badly. I'm serious. Share the work before you think it's ready. Make a decision with only 70% of the information. That idea of the perfect moment? It's a lie. It's a story you tell yourself to stay safe and small. And so I'll leave you with this final question. What is the resistance you will name today? What is the shadow career you've been pouring all your energy into to avoid your real work? What is it? Name it, right now. Because the moment you can actually name the pattern, you're not trapped inside it anymore. You've just taken your very first step onto real ground.